Are you overwhelmed by the challenge of personalizing communication for thousands of students? That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. From nudging prospective students to guiding those already on their journey, AI assistants don't just automate, they write, build, and optimize every step of your digital campaigns. Discover how at element451.com/AI team.
Hi, I'm a higher ed CMO, and I have a confession to make. If I had a nickel for every time a higher ed marketing leader told me that their budget did not align with the expectations and goals of their position, I would have been able to retire 15 years ago. This is such a common problem in higher education marketing, and this episode is tackling how to talk about budget with your leadership, how to advocate for more budget, how to stretch your budget farther, and dives really deeply into how to make a case for growing your budget, particularly if your institution is struggling. So I hope you enjoyed this episode with my guest, Kristin Nichols, who's a higher education marketing professional with over 20 years of experience working at top tier institutions in the Northeast. And she lives just outside of Boston with her husband and their 2 young children. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO, a podcast that empowers higher ed marketers to bring innovation, creativity, and excellence to their work. I'm your host, Jaime Hunt. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education marketing. Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher educational professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. I'm so happy to be here with Kristin. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me to join you today.
I'm so thrilled to have you and your a little bit of a Boston accent on the show. Are you from Boston?
I grew up actually south of Worcester, which I actually have I lived in Boston for many years, but it's probably a mix. And the Worcester accent is actually similar to Boston, but a little bit stronger. For New Englanders, they understand what I'm saying. So yeah, it's probably a little bit of Boston and Worcester combined.
I love it. I love it. Well, and people will call me out on my Minnesota accent every
Yeah.
now and then, but when I'm with my family, like I know my mom and sisters are probably listening, but my sister has the Minnesota O like so bad, like oh, like
Yeah.
oh, you betcha. Very, very strong Midwestern accent, my sister. Now that we've gotten past accents, Kristin, you are here to talk with me a little bit about marketing on a shoestring. And we have both, as consultants and I probably within our institutions, seen situations where marketing doesn't have the type of investment that's necessary to be truly effective. But I would love to hear your perspective on why it's important for colleges and universities to invest adequately in marketing, even when overall budgets are tight, perhaps even when you're thinking about having to cut budgets.
The question I would kind of pose to people is, how's it going with the current investment that you have at your university in marketing? And if the answer is not well, you're probably underfunding your marketing efforts, and that's just a waste of money, right? But marketing isn't a magic wand, and I think that that's a challenge that we have to overcome as marketers, is getting that message out there. It's an investment, not an expense, but I kind of look at it the same way I look at my retirement account. You have to really invest in marketing for, compounded gains, and those take time. So if you're looking for something to be a miracle and to work immediately, you're probably setting up your marketing operation for failure or unrealistic expectations. And it's best to really take a look at the long-term strategy. And what I'm often seeing as a consultant is a lack of upfront financial commitment, and that's followed by a scramble mid-year. And they're looking at the data and the numbers, and things are not good. So somebody finds modest funds to throw at marketing with unrealistic expectations of a quick return, and this mentality sets everyone up for failure, and it's leading to frustration and a poor perception of marketing's value. I also see short contract terms that are due to underfunded plans, and that's resulting in periods where the schools go digitally silent. They've got this pocket of money, they throw it, and then in a couple months it dries up and they don't have any more money, so they just go away. And that's not strategic flighting. It's just a true shutdown of the brand, a shrinking of its of the reach, and wasting just financial resources and human resources. So this can lead to leaders at an institution incorrectly assuming that marketing doesn't work. And when reality, the truth is, it's just a lack of sustained strategy and investment that's the issue.
That is so true. I'm thinking about, I was just talking to someone and we were reminiscing about, in January and February, when those apps aren't quite what they were hoping for, suddenly they find, $1 million to
Yes.
throw at marketing, and they say, quick, get me students. And by the way, I want them to all be high achieving students who, as we know, are not waiting until
No.
February to apply for college. And so you're like, why couldn't I have had this $1 million 6 months ago, 9 months ago? Now you're asking me to do the impossible with it. And it's not going to gen up the results that you're hoping for. And then at the end of the day, to your point, you're going to say marketing doesn't work. I gave you $1 million and it didn't have the impact I was hoping for. Well, where'd that $1 million come from? And couldn't you have strategically and more proactively thought about that at the start of the enrollment cycle rather than at that stage?
Right. And then you can customize to the students that are the high achievers, but it's too late at that point. Hail Marys very often fail, whether it's in
Right.
sports or in marketing. So it's just not a good idea to kind of find that $1 million in January, February, and try and expect the marketing team to work miracles. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and more likely at probably most of the institutions of my listeners, it's not even $1 million. It'll be 50,000 with even more unrealistic expectations.
Well, I would echo that. I mean, I'm not working with big budgets. Usually the partnerships that I have are smaller institutions, demographic cliff challenged places, and it's modest funds. And that's another thing. It's a challenge because of the funds available and the timing of the funds coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. That timing piece is so important. And I think about the institutions that I have been working with, or some of them, obviously not all of them, but some of the institutions that I've been working with or having conversations with, they're talking about what their history has been. And this has been like a decade or more sometimes of this sort of fits and starts funding to marketing. Or in the case of my last institution, and I hate to like out them, but we actually received no base budget funding for marketing whatsoever. All we were funded were salaries. And every year we had to do that end of year money to like get the money for everything we wanted to do. Or we got this like little pot that would be like, well, ask us again in January and February and you can have more. And to me, looking at that and having come into that situation and seeing it had gone back a decade, I'm like, there's some long-term consequences to this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what those are.
Yeah, I mean, like the stop go mentality long term, I mean, you are not, as an institution, going to gain traction. And it's sort of like, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different, result is the definition of insanity, right? So it's challenging to try and tell institutional leadership that it's time for just a cultural change around that mentality. But when marketing is underfunded, the institution's reach is silenced, sometimes entirely. And I'm seeing that right now with one of my partners. And this silence places an extra pressure on enrollment and fundraising teams. So now, instead of marketing being there to support the efforts of enrollment and fundraising or development, the staffs are caught in an endless cycle of manual one-on-one outreach, which takes longer, takes more manpower, and these come with typically low response rates. So the conversion efforts are just not going to be good. And properly funding marketing can ease the burden, making goals more achievable and automating certain aspects so these recruiters or fundraisers can focus on what they do best. What I'm seeing with my partners is small institutions already face staffing challenges, right? Their individuals are wearing many hats oftentimes, and they're overworked, and they feel unsupported. And when they are asked to do this kind of catch up and this flurry of manual efforts, that causes burnout, or it can cause them to leave. And then at the end of the day, that's severely impacting the institution's strategic plan and their bottom line, right? You're starting to have turnover problems and people who just throw their hands up and say, I give up. I am tired of working this hard and not seeing any fruitful efforts take shape. That's a really tough place for everyone to be in.
I 100% agree. I was just on the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast talking about how I think one of the biggest risks to the higher ed marketing industry is this way that we fund unrealistic expectations and how it drives people out of the business. Because if we're not going to give people the resources they need to actually accomplish the goals we set for them, that means every year they have the burden of carrying the weight of knowing they didn't meet a goal. And some people can just like walk around and be fine not having met a goal. But for high achievers, people who have anxiety, people who are firstborn daughters, people with imposter syndrome, fill in the blank, not meeting a goal, as much as you tell yourself this wasn't a realistic goal, as much as you can inwardly think that, having a physical manifestation of like your inadequacy in your mind, this is what you're thinking. When you're not hitting a goal, eventually that's going to burn you out and going to burn you out emotionally.
I echo every sentiment of that. Whenever I don't meet a goal professionally, and even when it's because it was just an unrealistic goal, as I'm chopping vegetables for dinner or I'm brushing my teeth, I'm thinking, what could I have done differently? Where did I miss, the puzzle piece that fit into this? And oftentimes it's not anything that you or I or anyone else could have done. It was the setup that failed, right? But you have these dedicated people in the field who are passionate and they're frustrated, and they're going to eventually, unfortunately, leave higher ed, and that's going to be a problem for all of us.
I 100% agree. And when people ask about, the pipeline for professionals, and I'm teaching in a higher ed marketing graduate program right now, and I'm thinking about what do I need my students to understand? And I think there has to be a piece around how you convey the idea of marketing as an investment and not an expense, and how do you advocate for those resources? And I'm really curious on your thoughts about how you can communicate, or why universities should think about marketing as an investment rather than an expense.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to just like that overall, it is an investment. And I could certainly share with you examples of that, for your class of like, here's where I started. And then we added more money over years and it was positive for enrollment efforts. But universities should look at the success of other institutions, the ones who are really doing it well. And I would tell folks listening to research your competitors online to see what they're doing digitally, to see if you can find their brochures. I will share with you that I go to NAC CAC conferences every spring to look at the view books of competitors to see what's going on out there, seed myself into communication streams, which I know I'm not seeing everything, but I'm at least getting an idea of competitor set and what they're doing. Take a look at the case award winners and those people who work in institutions who are presenting at conferences on successful marketing plans that they've developed and implemented, and then tailor them for your institution. And these things will help state your case. I mean, I know Southern New Hampshire University it's a monster of a school, but Jamie, you and I are around the same age, and I went to high school here in Massachusetts in the late 90s, and Southern New Hampshire University was not the school it was today, and they were just changing their name from New Hampshire College to SNHU, and they really put funding behind their efforts. It transformed from this small traditional campus in Manchester, and there really wasn't a buzz at all about the school. SNHU at the time, I remember I didn't really look at it, and it was a school that was similar to a lot of places I was visiting. But they invested heavily to grow new programs, grow new student populations. And then what they did is, as they saw growth, they consistently allocated a portion of their net revenue to marketing so they could expand. And that's just, at the end of the day, that's what universities really need to look at. If you put money towards marketing and it's starting to grow, then what percentage of the growth revenue can you just earmark for marketing in years 2, 3, 4, et cetera? And this will help your university overall. And I had to read a book called Transforming a College when I was in graduate school many years ago, but it was about Elon University's transformation. And it was another example. Elon was a sleeper school many years ago, and they really did a lot to transform the college. And but they had a significant investment in hiring the right marketers and putting the right funding behind marketing years ago. And now that's why today these two institutions are so successful. They were early adopters of higher education marketing strategy.
When I think about some of the schools that are like on the precipice right now, the ones that are like, we maybe are going to close within a year,
Yes.
I worry that it's probably too late for those schools. But the schools that are looking at a 5 to 10 year journey, rather than add an MBA program to try to boost revenue, maybe throw a chunk of money at marketing and really do it strategically and make sure you have the right people in position to help you develop that strategy. Bring in people from the outside if you need to, make really good, strong, strategic hires, but put investment there, because nothing that you do in terms of adding new programs is going to do that without marketing anyway. So you might as well just immediately, while you're over here developing programs or whatever, changing your curriculum, whatever little magic that you're doing, investing in marketing to build a brand so that when you're ready to roll out these new modalities or these new programs or whatever, you already have this strong brand. I mean, what do you think about that kind of idea?
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that too, because another thing that I'm seeing is, this is such a common higher ed challenge, is these programs, either new or established, sometimes they just don't have the program named correctly. They come up with this fancy, like, oh, we're going to name it this. And it's like, well, no, maybe you should just name it what it is, in the modern Latin languages. Well, just talk about Spanish language and culture or something of that nature, so that keywords are there. You're now aligning the program with your competitors a little bit more. And that's, yeah. So I kind of just wanted to add that nugget, but I completely agree with you. I don't know that the world needs another MBA program to launch today.
Right.
We need to figure out where to put the money to move the needle for the programs that are good on your campus. Find the programs that are good and put some marketing dollars behind them to grow those, because as I've said before on other podcasts, all ships rise with the tide. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're a CMO or an AVP or, somebody who has the position to be able to ask for a larger budget. What ways have you seen be effective for that?
Yeah, it's challenging, and I know it's not an easy thing to ask for more money, and it can be, it can take a while to get the funding you need, but help leadership see the value of proper funding and be honest with them. So, I recently had to tell a client I did it as kindly as I possibly could, but I had to be upfront and say, I want to help and support you, but you're digitally silent. Properly funding your marketing efforts is the only way to navigate the enrollment cliff. And there was a silence, and then I sort of thought to myself, okay, we'll see what happens. And they came back 3 weeks later. We're shifting things. We
That's
hear,
great.
they didn't say we hear you, but the message I received is we hear you and we understand, and we are working hard to shift things so we can make this work, because they're in a tough position. And it was a tough thing to say, but it was taken seriously. I've had to be a broken record at times. When I was in a former role, it took a while to get proper digital ad budgeting, but I eventually got it. I demonstrated the importance of doing this by doing a competitor analysis, and then the university saw success with digital ads. And when it came time to plan for a new fiscal year, I was given a larger budget without even asking, because they saw the data and they're like, "Hey, this works." And then it happened again the following year. And I caution folks, be professional and don't annoy. Know when to bring it up and consistently beat that drum, but do it professionally. But you can be persistent, and you should be persistent. If this is truly something that's going to help the institution, and you've done your research and you've presented that, you can be persistent and just do your homework first.
Yeah. Hey, it's Jaime. Element 451 is hosting the AI Engage Summit on October 29th and 30th. This free virtual event features many of your favorite Enrollify creators and will explore AI's impact on student engagement, enrollment marketing, and institutional success. Learn to tap into AI to automate personalized outreach, improve your emails, streamline content creation, and boost campaign performance. Plus, hear directly from current students on how AI is influencing their engagement and campus life. And don't miss my session, AI Centricity, Accelerating Student Success and Innovation in Higher Education, at 2 p.m. on October 30th. The AI Engage Summit is your guide to understanding and applying AI at your school. Registration is free. Visit element451.com to save your spot. Now back to the show. I love that. And I would add to that, building credibility with your CFO can go a really long way, because
Oh yeah.
that first ask, if you've done, if you've been able to show, like an ROI based on previous investment and how that's returned. But in some cases, you can't, either because the investment has been so small that it hasn't been able to get that return that you're hoping for, or it's been that situation where it's just that shotgun at the end of the year versus strategic. Getting a relationship with your CFO so that they're willing to do an upfront investment. And when you're setting that upfront investment and putting it in place and putting your action in place, make sure whatever action you're going to take with that money has something you can measure, so that you can say, you gave me, and this is a situation that happened to me, you gave me 1.5 million. I poured it into these states. 9 of these 10 states had over a 25% increase in applications and a 17% increase in enrollment, or something like that. And to be able to show that, and then when you're able to say, this is the cost of a student, this is what a student brings in revenue over their 4 or 6 years on campus, and so this marketing helped generate X millions of dollars. Then suddenly it's like, okay, yes, you're speaking the language of the CFO.
Yeah, I would agree. It's important to have that relationship, and also I would extend that too to the provost and
Mm-hmm.
president slash chancellor. It's that trifecta of those three, and I fortunately had that in this situation where I had a strong relationship with those three individuals. They saw the value, but they also were realistic, where I expressed to them that digital advertising takes time. I've never seen data and numbers really pop and gain until the third quarter. Usually, maybe 6 months, you might start to see a little traction, but it's really around that 7, 8, 9 month mark when you're really going to start to see digital ads improve and take off.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like it's some of these things are a long game. I
Yeah.
mean, even when I've done branding campaigns in the past, I've been really upfront with my leadership that this is going to be, a 3 to 5 year waiting game to be able to see real differences in perception and affinity and that kind of thing. Like a lot of these things aren't overnight.
Yeah.
um, for those campuses that are like, okay, this is great, Jaime and Kristin, I'm going to ask for more money, but this fiscal year, obviously, that's not going to happen. That we're talking about the budget request that's due in December
Mm-hmm.
for next year, for this year. How do I stretch my marketing dollars because I did not get what I wanted? How do I make them go the farthest?
Yeah. So, I've worked for a wide variety of institutions, and I've had the opportunity to have a money tree that I could pick leaves from anytime I wanted. And that sounds wonderful, but I have to tell you that um, creativity lies in kind of that struggle where you don't have that money tree. And my best work and the best work of the colleagues that I partnered with came with smaller budgets. So segment populations to target those most likely to convert. That's just, I think the first thing you do. You have a small pocket of money. Okay, go after the fit students that are going to convert. And also, I've always had a good success with geofencing ads, either during events like like a Boston Calling concert, for example. You've got a large group of people who are attending something that aligns with your institution, and the geographic location is correct, the age group is correct. So it's a good way to kind of get a little bit of a sugar rush going if that's what you need. But find your student influencers. That's like a very cheap or free thing to support your social media efforts. So a university I worked for in the past, we were just like combing through YouTube one day, typing in the name of the university. And Jaime, the most viewed video of that university was just some kid driving around going to the Target and the CVS and demonstrating how close they were to campus, and then walking out of their dorm room to their classes, and then just, using their phone to showcase the food. And any effort we tried to do internally in the marketing communications office, it was like dwarfed compared to this video. So it was like, well, let's find this kid. Like, let's do it and see if we can have them be an influencer. So we did. And that was just an easy thing because they already had a captive audience. It didn't make drastic improvements, but we did get bumps from it. And, it was just that authenticity piece that's really important. And it's an inexpensive strategy.
I love that. That is amazing. When you were talking about having to have been like the most innovative and creative when you
Yeah.
had the smallest budget, oh my gosh, that hits home. Like truly, my first CMO role was my original budget was like $75,000 for marketing. Like it was
Oh,
so little, and the stuff we did, I'm so proud of the work that we did and the results that we got because we had to be so strategic and creative. But we were able to show, like, okay, look at what we could do with this little money. Now give us a little bit more. And we never got like a multi-million-dollar budget, but we did get more resources, but we'd already known how to work on a shoestring so we could stretch them even farther. And that's one of the things when I went from that institution to Miami University, where I was like Scrooge McDuck with money. One of my points was, you're not going to find somebody who knows how to stretch this money farther than me. Like I can take this I can take every penny, I will use every single penny and maximize it. And so, if you are in that situation where you're having to make the most of a tiny little budget, it is prepping you for being like the best budget optimizer in the world.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also just like creativity versus comfort, right? I always just, yeah, I agree.
What advice would you give to the CMOs and AVPs and the folks that have these minimal budgets but have really big, potentially unrealistic goals?
For most places, you have to focus on enrollment because that's where the revenue is coming in for most institutions, right? So the goals should probably start there. I mean, it's hard to kind of say without knowing the individual challenges at a school, but 95% of the time it's around, enrollment. And this needs to be broken down into enrollment subgroups. So for graduate programs, prioritize marketing around the programs that generate the most revenue. And I'll include professional ed certificate programs in there. Just put the money towards those programs and see the growth, and then expand out to the other programs once you have some substantial traction with the stars. For undergraduate efforts, don't break it down by program unless there's a real need to. It's really more about the brand and how it resonates with the target population, Gen Z, and now we're looking at Alpha. Concentrate on areas with strong or emerging brand recognition and tailor the plan with visuals and content that resonate with the general audiences and their families. And please do not just set it and forget it. Change your creative, tweak a couple words of your content every like 6 to 8 weeks so that you're meeting them where they are in the enrollment cycle, right? And that's just important. If you're just regurgitating the same visuals, the same message, the click rate's going to suffer. And that's a digital ad strategy specifically. So track the progress, but keep in mind that they take time to really have things pop. So for the most part, I think it starts with that enrollment piece.
You and I are both, and we've talked about this before, really interested in AI
Yeah.
and how tools like that can help a department, maximize their time. But can you talk a little bit about the ways that you use AI that school, or the ways you might recommend a school use
Yeah.
AI?
I don't know. Like I'm hearing still like I'm uncomfortable with AI, and I want to say to people, well, get comfortable because it's here and it's not going away, and it makes your load lighter. So utilize it when you can. I've had great success with small graphic projects for social media or for digital advertising, things like that. Presentation building, no brainer. I mean, AI can just make an amazing presentation in a short amount of time. And it's so easy to just tell AI, no, I need you to tweak it this way. No, that doesn't sound like me. Or, oh, you're off with this visual. And it's just easier than the back and forth that can happen between two humans doing it. And it's saving institutions a lot of money to implement AI strategies. I also make sure that if I don't have a physical copy editor available, that I have an AP style, a Chicago manual style ready to go to review my content. That doesn't mean that I take everything AI suggests and implement it, but it at least acts as a copy editor, and it gives me that starting point so that I can review content a little more closely, and I'm getting a second opinion of my words, which is always beneficial. I took an AI certificate course with the University of Virginia. There's a lot of neat things coming, and I was kind of drinking from the fire hose when I was in the course, but how we can train CRMs to really just basically read a prospective student's mind by implementing certain things, that's emerging, but I bet you in a year we're going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I have talked about this before, but you mentioned it a little earlier, like the people who are like, I'm still skeptical, or I think it's just going to be a fad or whatever. I just worry so much for those people and their professional obsolescence. Like
Yes.
it's going to be required in job descriptions in the next couple of years that you have at least familiarity and understanding, and it's going to be embedded in every single tool.
Hmm.
Like it's going to be embedded in Word, it's going to be embedded in everything. And you're already starting to see that. And having an understanding of how to use it allows you to get around some of the ethical concerns that you have. Like if you're like, my personal ethics say that I will not use it in this way, then if you understand how to use it, you can eliminate that way of using it. But you can't just say, I'm going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not going to use it at all because I don't want to use it in this niche sort of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think the stigma's gone. Would you agree? I mean, like I was like, oh, AI is just lazy and it's going to do my work for me and then I won't have a job. And I don't think that at all anymore. It is elevating everything I do. And, yeah, it's going to be in every job description. I have a colleague who is looking for a leadership position. And I told them, like, you need to get on the AI like train now, because I know this institution is going to be looking for someone who has experience and comfort with AI.
Yeah. I recently spoke to a cabinet and they were talking about how to build an AI centric campus
Hmm.
so that the campus is thinking about how they can incorporate AI into different processes. Just anytime they're going to evaluate a process, anytime they're going to evaluate interaction with a student, how could AI help streamline it or make it more efficient, make it more productive? And I just love the idea of it coming from like a senior leadership perspective, which is why I think that, the listeners who are VPs, aspiring VPs, AVPs, those that have a seat at the leadership table, you can be leaders in driving that for your institution. And how great is that?
It's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. Shifting back to marketing and do feel like talking about AI is an important part of the conversation around budget and having this culture of innovation. But I'm curious about your thoughts on what leaders can do to build this culture that values and prioritizes marketing, even when overall resources are limited.
Yeah. I mean, this is a challenging question because I think, it always boils down to the culture at the institution and what's that like, right? But leadership needs to trust the marketing leaders and agencies they hire and give them the time needed to develop marketing plans that align with the institution's goals. So it's marketing should be included in strategic plans and viewed as a strategic partner, not as an afterthought. Unfortunately, many still see marketing as merely a campus print shop, and it's not necessarily leadership that thinks that. It could be faculty or everything. So, what we need is leadership to change the conversation around marketing so that everyone on campus understands that it's a strategy, it's a pillar of the strategic plan, that it's not beneficial to view marketing communication professionals as anything but strategists, who are going to help elevate and improve the institution. So, just continually advocating for marketing strategic roles is essential to shift this perception.
Well, and I think getting your expertise in being able to talk about marketing at that more elevated level, at a more mature level, helps you to make that case. Because if you're talking a talk that's a big talk, people will start wanting you to be able to walk that walk, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think about this whole conversation and how it really is incumbent upon the presidents to really, really see and understand marketing. And when I get the opportunity to work with, work for, talk to, fill in the blank, a president that understands this, it's so heartening because they see that this isn't an expense, that this is a strategic investment. And that helps that perception on campus a little bit, because I know, be prepared. If you do get a big investment, be prepared that there will be people in the campus community that aren't happy with that they will think it's coming from their pockets. And in a way it is. Like, don't be the smug person that's like, well, no, I just got extra money. That didn't mean you didn't lose money. No, it probably did.
Yeah.
If the pie is finite in terms of finances. But, having a president who's like helping you make that case can make a huge difference in those perceptions across campus.
Yeah. And it's in communicating that is vital.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been such a great conversation. Hopefully will help a lot of people as they think about their budget, as they think about talking with their leadership. But where can people find you if they want to chat with you a little more?
Yeah, folks can find me at nicholshighered.com or nicholshighered@gmail. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn. So I love connecting with other higher ed marketers. And when people show up in my inbox asking or, a question or just to say hello, I love that. So please feel free to reach out. It's always fun to discuss our industry and the collective efforts that we've put into place.
And I 100% agree. You can find me on LinkedIn at Jaime Hunt, Jaime. My DMs are open, and you can find me on my website at solvehighered.com or Jaime at solvehighered, and you can spell it whatever way you want. I have all the possible spellings redirecting to the correct spelling. And I'm a little bit on TikTok at the Higher Ed CMO. So I'm happy to chat with you. If you're like, hey, Jaime, this is the case I'm making. What do you think? Whatever, feel free to shoot me a note. And until then, let's go bust some silos. Confessions of a Higher Ed CMO is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month. We've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry best as your host. Learn from Mallory Wilsey, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Eddie Francis, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.